Okay, everyone. We are live and welcome. I hope everybody's well. My name is Anna Ospina and I'm a member of the West Cork Creates Committee. And thank you for joining us tonight for in conversation with Sonia Caldwell, whose screen name is Elva Quinn, and Angie Shanahan. And they're going to be discussing their work and talking a little bit about the Harvest exhibition that they're both involved with. So I'm going to hand over to them now, and we look forward to hearing what they're going to be talking about. Over to you guys.
Hello.
Hello, I can see you now, Angie. You can see me.
I can see you as well, Sonia. How are you?
Okay, I think we agreed that I'd start off and get the ball rolling. So just to tell anyone who might be listening that sort of myself and Angie would know each other and we've chatted before about art and various other things. And I suppose when we discussed about doing this chat or conversation tonight, it really kind of boiled down to kind of more of what our inspirations were for our art. You know, rather than getting too bogged down in the pieces themselves, I think, you know, we find, and I think when you meet other artists as well, that is the conversation often is kind of what drives you and what sort of catches your interest. And then I suppose just to kind of sort of just introduce why we're here, it's sort of we both are representing pieces in the West Cork Creates Harvest exhibition, which due to the year that's in it is represented all on this fantastic website that does the work great justice. Obviously it's a pity it can't be seen in real. And yeah, so that's sort of, so the theme, that's what I was just going to say, yeah, the theme of Harvest was that we would, it just kind of drives us both, I think, to kind of, and anyone else. Some artists hate working with themes, but you know, if it's the right theme, it kind of drives you to think about something. So maybe I'll sort of ask Angie first, kind of the theme and where that kind of sparked her beautiful seaweed paintings.
Thanks, Sonia, and very nice introduction. Well, you know, it's and thanks to Anna and Alison as well for the, you know, opportunity to be in this really wonderful exhibition again. Harvest sort of draws up lots of connotations, obviously, at this time of the year, and as we previous exhibitions which I've been involved with, the West Cork Creates, they coincide usually with a taste of West Cork, and that's one of the kind of sort of really interesting things, which the combination of the exhibition and the whole sort of a taste of West Cork, really, which is between the visual and the actual chance to go and enjoy some of the foodstuffs that West Cork has to offer, the incredible sort of foodstuffs West Cork has to offer. So when the theme this year, Harvest, I mean, gosh, you know, there were so many elements that I could have picked, and I decided to go with seaweed because a couple of years ago, it was in 2015 actually, I did, during the Taste of West Cork again, I did a workshop with Franny Rattigan about seaweed. And she produced a book at the time called Seaweed Kitchen. And so that, you know, I've always been interested in seaweed just from a visual point of view in terms of walking along the coast, which is something I do a lot. And, you know, back in my childhood, I would have gone to the seaweed baths in Ballybunion because that's where we went on holiday. And, you know, so the whole thing of immersion with seaweed, you know, swimming with seaweed, the edible element to it, the medicinal element to it. So it had a lot of, and it's in a kind of it's a sort of being revived again. The whole element, positive element of seaweed has been revived again in the present times, and it's something I think during this awful year that we've had to endure in terms of you know, the pandemic, it's a resource that's at our doorstep, which I just think, you know we're all kind of sort of finding things this year which have been of kind of sort of incredible importance to us. And seaweed, I was glad I had chosen chosen seaweed actually as my topic this year, you know, because I've been delving into it and finding it on the seashore, and you know, different elements like that. Plus, I really like the fact that you know, West Cork Creates have chosen a poem this year as well, because the one Harvest by Theo Dorgan, and because it's something I've been responding to a lot lately is work by poet or Irish poets or national poets, and so it was something that I was keen to read, and actually one of the pieces in the exhibition which is on view there is influenced by a line in the poem which is called Slack Entanglement, or two words in fact out of a line in the poem, Slack Entanglement. And it was really that whole thing of where you know, this sort of low tide where the seaweed is clinging to the rocks, and some of it has dried on the rocks, and it just, quite often there could be things entangled in the seaweed, and it just seemed to lend itself to,
Sorry,
to
little painting out on our screen there with the sea in it, the blue.
it's the one actually with the blue at the top,
Yes.
so with the rocks in the foreground, and so that's looking down across the rocks with the sea as the upper part of the
Bonded directly to Theo's poem.
Yeah, so that's directly from Theo's poem, and Slack Entanglement, just, you know, when I was reading it through again, it just seemed to jump out at me as a kind of a perfect title for that painting, actually, you know. And so, as I say, poetry does influence a lot of the direction of my work in the last number of years. Especially, I've been lucky to meet a lot of our top, you know, amazing poets, and well, not, you know, all poets in fact, who are kind of working.
I can just draw the connection there with the poetry as well, maybe, in that we so I didn't necessarily directly refer to Theo's poem that was presented to us prior to the exhibition, but I know that Theo's poem is influenced by the Seamus Heaney poem, A Harvest Bow. And so that poem, The Harvest Bow, is ingrained in me in many ways, because it's one that I've used a lot in school workshops and various other things, I suppose, because it directly links to a straw harvest bow, which I think most people can see on their screen now, which I've included as part of the exhibition. It's a small little craft piece, you know. It's not a major piece of fine art. It is they were made, you know, by the thousands, by everybody in the country at harvest time. It was kind of a decorative piece, and it was, I mean, it was often given. It's also called a sort of love token or a harvest knot. It was sort of given from boys to girls and girls to boys. And it was also presented to the lady of the house at harvest time, and there's a whole rich history and folklore to it. And I've made them in some festival events and in schools. And the Seamus Heaney poem, it was actually one that was recited a lot when he died, because it would be considered one of his best poems. If we get a chance at the end, maybe I do have it to hand here. We could read it. We'll see. But
I think actually, Sonia, you're right there, because you know, with Theo's tribute to Seamus Heaney with his poem Harvest, I think we could kind of look at so many poems by Seamus Heaney and draw a reference to, you know, a current piece of work that each of us would be working on, or, you know, for everybody, actually, you know, they could find a piece of Seamus Heaney's work as well as Theo Dorgan's to draw inspiration from. And yeah, because that's really interesting, that piece there, your piece relating to.
Said Seamus has lots of, which I haven't come across them. You said he does reference seaweed quite a bit in his poetry.
Yeah, especially dulse, you know, which is the it's the one where, you know, it's like a very, you know, it's like you'd find it on the seashore, you know, on the rocks. It looks like a piece of seaweed or a piece of lettuce or something. It's quite transparent. And so that would have been collected from the rocks at, you know, at the low tide, and Seamus Heaney references it he even uses it as a color reference. He calls it something adults shroud. In fact, in one of his poems, adults color. So that sort of reference he uses the kind of a reference into seaweed quite a lot in his poetry, which is kind of sort of, it's fascinating. And it seems to be, Dulce especially seems to be, the Ulster coastline. It's referenced an awful lot between a lot of songs, because even the Dolaman, that's which I referenced in my piece there in connection to the seaweed. Alton and Clannad, who are groups associated with the northern coastline again. That's all about women collecting the seaweed. In the kind of on the shoreline again. So it's seaweed has been such an important element, because it's the first mention of seaweed as a medicinal, edible, the whole connotation of bathing it, everything has been mentioned back as far as the 6th century. And one of the saints, Saint Columkill, has been apparently he survived on collecting seaweed and the green clover that was on the shoreline, so he collected it for the community. So there's early reference back, because
even it is so much part of historical kind of harvest and collecting food. It's not what immediately springs to mind when people think of harvest. People sort of think more of vegetables and tomatoes and the grain and
And I mean, just what we can see happening, between the sort of corn and the barley and everything being harvested in the fields. It's a very visual element to the land, but what's harvested from the sea is just it's just incredible. And actually, today being National Tree Day, I kind of sort of often think of the trees are also, which last year when we had West Cork Creates exhibition, which had a focus, to do with the trees. I just kind of sort of find like the underwater treescape of the bladder wrack and the seaweed, which has the holdfast where it clings to rocks on the seashore, like that is like an underwater forest, So I kind of thought it was quite fitting today being National Tree Day to, just even think of the underwater forest actually, which, unless we're sort of, scuba diving or going along snorkeling, we don't always see until it's tossed by storms onto the seashore. And I know you've actually painted seaweed again in your other kind of sort of work
so
area.
I reference, I mean, my sculpture probably is the main piece in the exhibition, but I mean, I do the Kilco Studios range of cards. That's my kind of other side to me, and yeah, I mean, that just brings me, I mean, I'm always researching plants and finding new plants, whether it's seaweeds or mostly plants, but I have delved into seaweeds as well. And then every time I paint a plant or a flower or anything, a tree, I do research it, which all goes into the calendar that I do every year. And it's all that absolute depth of folklore and history and knowledge and food information that I'm just digging up every year, and it just doesn't end. There's just this endless fascinating depth there, and that's it. Also, I mean, that all ties in with my sculpture work, which I consider to be more my fine art work, and it's a complete kind of blend one to the other, because I suppose when I looked at the theme this year myself, I automatically kind of went back to other research I'd done in the past on sort of mythology and at harvest time, which does tie in that harvest bow, the straw plait I was talking about earlier. So then, yeah, just really quickly, I came across this figure called Crum Dove, who I hadn't really, I maybe heard about a little bit before. So then I started reading more, got a few more books out of the library that look at kind of the folklore of harvest time. And just one quick anecdote. I mean, some people even listening, but I think more in the kind of west of Dingle area, people are known to say by Crum, as in they're saying by God, be God. They say by Crum, because he was an ancient pagan god. But it's just interesting to note that it's still very much, his influence is still very much in the the kind of some present day consciousness. And they do celebrate Crum Dubh Sunday.
Oh, really?
In Ballyferriter. I still don't know the exact facts, but it's still, I mean, there are places out there. It was more widespread than, so basically, I mean, just briefly, Crum Dubh was sort of a pagan god of harvest. And so the image I have sculpted was one of the many stories as he came out of the earth carrying the first sheaf of wheat as a gift to the people. So it's hard to see, you can't see it on the screen here because he's moving so fast, but he does have, there's a gold leaf carved sheaf of wheat on his back, and he's bending under the weight of this important sheaf of wheat. So that's just one of the many stories. And then of course you get the St. Patrick, this once Christianity comes in, you get that battle of, the Christian versus the old, and there's lots of other stories relating to his battles with St. Patrick, and of course St. Patrick won, as we all know. And so yeah, I mean, I just really enjoyed kind of, playing around with a figure like that. And I kind of tried to, he has a menacing sort of, he's a kind of good evil kind of guy. It's like a little bit of, I think is quite interesting,
Yeah, because just when you were saying he, emerged from the earth, I mean, because you've drawn him out of stone, which is, kind of a nice, it's just kind of a nice parallel there with him emerging from the earth, you pulling him out of the stone, which is, it's kind of an interesting image.
Yeah, talk about before, but the, that kind of the base of your work as well, how you formulate and how you work, and mostly with, I mean, you were talking about, I mean, everything. I mean, every artist will say, architects, even everything starts with a drawing. You have an idea in your head, and you need to get that, to get it out in order to realize it. And sometimes you get it out on paper in a drawing and you go, no, that's not going to work, and you move on. The
medium really does, what your subject matter really, you kind of think about the medium then that would actually suit it best, and like that, you're, starting with your drawing, so you drawing him out of the stone is kind of just a very nice visual image, actually, and just what you've achieved with.
No, I've worked with other subject matter, but when it comes to sculpture, I've mostly gone back to the figure. In my kind of more, fine art pieces, I've gone back to the figure all the time, because it's just the right medium for it. I mean, you were talking yourself about, your sketches beforehand, and the fact that some of your pictures are kind of smaller kind of versions of large.
Well, exactly, yeah, because the painting there of the seaweed beside your sculpture piece there, which is it's called Clare Island Rack, and it's the one you just see a reflection of the wall on the left side, and it's a very kind of still meditative kind of look at seaweed, And in fact, I was actually heading out to Cape Clear, because I was involved in a series of workshops out there with two other colleagues. And I was just sitting waiting for the ferry, and just kind of sort of looking into the water. That painting there is actually it's another version of a bigger painting, which incorporates the steps and the seaweed in. It's actually the one behind me here. I don't know if you can see that there, but yeah. So I just loved the actual sort of, just the beauty of that seaweed. It was just it's so delicately put together in that frond of seaweed, that and it was just floating there in the water in front of me, and I just kind of felt it needed another painting just in its focus on it, in fact, so that's and I called it Clare Island Rack, just from the point of view that I was meditating on, just lots of things, and just thinking about the seaweed as I was looking at it, and on my way to, just waiting for the boat to come in to go to Cape Clear. So that's where the title, obviously, as we know, coming up with a title as well as always, is sort of an interesting piece relating to the work. And and the one on the other side of Slack Entanglement, which is the seaweed which is tossed in, it's called tidal deposit, and it's after the winter storms, where we find lots of of the seaweed tossed onto the shore. So that's the one that would actually hold fast onto the rocks as well. So we just find copious amounts of it on the seashore at this time. But I mean, the kelp would have been used an awful lot back in previous years, and I presume people are still kind of in different ways. But the top softer floral part would have been cut off, and the stalk then would have been burnt. The stalk of the kelp would have been burnt, as a fertilizer for the land. So it has just so many uses, So in as I say, as a piece, I just think it's just so beautiful to paint,
You have, so your top 3 pictures are in acrylic paint, and then you have a fish, and then I can't see the other image too clear on the screen, because I didn't see them when I went to look on the website. They're both prints.
They're both prints. So the one with the fish, it's photoriston, and it's using the photo and applying it to manipulating the image a little, printing it onto plate and then printing from that. So and then the colorgraph to the right would be, that's actually influenced by the dried seaweed, which is, if anybody can see this here, this is what influenced that piece on the right, and that's the kelp, which is dried, and it becomes very hard when it's dried. So I mean, it just becomes an amazing piece again, nearly a sculptural kind of piece actually. When it's dry like that. So I found those. I'm always picking up these kind of pieces off.
I've painted that exact thing before. It's in a sketchbook somewhere. Again, I was onto the sculptural nature of it, and I mean that's what drew me to doing botanical drawings in the first place, because my primary interest was sculpture, and I constantly seeing all these amazing sculptural forms, both in kind of, particularly this time of year when all the plants start drying in the hedgerows, you get amazing seed heads and forms, and then the seaweeds as well. Yeah, you get these, and actually Michael Durden in the exhibition as well has done some amazing, it's almost like a dried little piece of is it egg rack or something, as a brooch or something. So sorry, so in
coveted it, in fact.
You've coveted it.
Yeah, see Michael Durden's his jewelry piece. Yeah, it's gorgeous as well. So no, because I could see that as a kind of the dried. I could see it as in another material, as a sculptural form. So as you said, that's where the inspiration for you has come as well, which is kind of an interesting, because it's something that I haven't actually gone into.
Something I was going to mention. I mean, when we were talking about Seamus Heaney earlier on, it's the rural. It's all his, he's somebody who was completely immersed in his upbringing in that rural life. And I know you from sort of being in West Cork as well, and me, it's, you just get, everything, you become like your landscape around you, and I mean, everything does influence. And it is just that's why we respond well to things like Seamus Heaney poems, and you often find people who are, it's people who have memories of particular rural. I know somebody who's mad about a Seamus Heaney poem, and she's not an artist at all, but she loves the Mass, when they came home from Mass poem, just because it conjures up memories for her as a child. And it's the really simple things that she's actually quite easy to appeal to people, I think.
Oh yeah, and I like that again with the Harvest poem by Theo Dorgan, just kind of, as the tribute to Seamus Heaney. I mean, it's the kind of that whole influence again, how, right across the board between, people who are in the creative area or not are all influenced or, affected by the I mean, the whole natural element that's in Heaney's work is just absolutely incredible, But and that's what I think Theo Dorgan picked up in his poem Harvest as well. So it's easy to kind of respond to so many areas in that kind of poetry.
But just bring it back to the current day, and just to kind of remind everyone as well that the exhibition is going to stay online until Christmas now, I think. And I know that I know that everybody, every artist's life has changed. Are you working on anything directly related to your life over the last 5 months, or did you have a kind of work plan set out anyway before?
Well, I actually have been working on, so I was saying my seaweed pieces there are sometimes like nearly microcosms of my walks on the seashore, on the coast, along the coast. So I've been doing a series of work which kind of involved bringing another element to the shoreline, and it's actually and it's a nostalgic piece in that I've been bringing this a 1930s changing tent to the seashore and setting it up, and so I've done a whole series of paintings, which one of them has gone to the Royal Ulster Academy, which will be coming up now in October. So but it's like that again. It's just that I suppose things out of context as well, because this piece would have been I suppose looked like a kind of nearly an alien element in the landscape in West Cork. But at the same time, it just kind of absorbed the lines because it's a striped fabric, and it absorbs the lines and the folds of the landscape, and it just seemed to just. It's like a Medusa sort of flowing in this sort
that's
of.
That's something, because I saw paintings of that you did quite some time ago, so you've kind of come back to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure, as we know, things we keep, the whole circle of work, I suppose. You keep coming back to things you touched on at some point, and because I suppose the influence is there right through, and things that you're influenced earlier on will still come through in your work as you go along or later on. It mightn't seem kind of apparent initially.
There can be a very long time. I mean, I have ideas in sketchbooks that I know, due to just life and time constraints at the moment, I don't have time to follow through on, but I will one day. And
that is the beauty of the sketchbook. It's like a notebook for a writer, where you're just kind of jotting down your ideas in just little thumbnails or whatever, and that's when I'm sort of walking as well. Like I just take a small sketchbook with me, really something that can fit in my pocket, really. So quite often I'll just make little thumbnail sketches and kind of use various kind of sources of information, really call them all my vehicles of information. And you can refer to them then, and it's funny when you do look back through sketchbooks and things, or notebooks, and just jottings, how those kind of sort of elements will reoccur in your work again at different points.
Become your artistic story, I suppose.
Absolutely.
And
it
doesn't go away. I'm watching. Did you want to read that poem at the end, Angie? The Theodore.
Have you got your one on the Heaney one there? The harvest.
I know that we're kind of nearing the end, and
I was just gonna say, go ahead. There's no problem to carry on. So just if you want to do your poem, and then I was thinking that if anyone else who's on the Zoom call with us has a question that they'd like to ask either one of you, then we could open it up and let people unmute their microphones as well, and turn the cameras on. So I'll let you guys read your poems, and then we'll see if anyone has any questions. Okay, thanks. You back, Angie?
Yeah, I'm just saying, I was waiting for you to start. Actually, I was just going to, just when we were talking about seaweed there, just one of the medicinal elements of seaweed was chewing dulse was one of the recommended things. Chewing it over 9 days was apparently meant to be very good for bad breath. Haven't actually, I thought that was an interesting little thing I came across, which had popped up in it was in medieval medical sort of book. So before toothpaste and everything was
but I'm not going to do it for 9 days.
Alternative sort of things for keeping the breath fresh, and the seaweed element came into use, which is always if we ever need to go back to it. So I'll let you start. You head away with the poem there, Sonia.
I suppose, mate. Yes. So I'm pretty sure this is the actual poem that did inspire Theo's poem. So, or was it just a general tribute to Seamus? I'm not sure. So this is a harvest bow by Seamus Heaney, and it does refer, if any people can see their screen, it refers directly to that little love knot of straw, as Seamus calls it, and his father. So the poem is basically about his father, and his father used to wear, as many people did, they used to wear the harvest knot pinned here to their chest, or the lapel was the term. And people used to go around, and I heard Seamus once in an interview say that, you know, when he moved down to Dublin, you know, he badly wanted to walk around the city, and he just couldn't. He just said it was just a step too far, you know, still wearing this harvest bow pinned to his lapel. Okay, so it's a harvest bow by Seamus Heaney. As you plaited the harvest bow, you implicated the mellowed silence in you, in wheat that does not rust, but brightens as it tightens twist by twist into a knowable corona, a throwaway love knot of straw. Hands that age round ash plants and cane sticks, and lapped the spurs on a lifetime of gamecocks, harked to their gift and worked with fine intent, until your fingers moved somnambulant, I tell and finger it like braille, gleaning the unsaid off the palpable. And if I spy into its golden loops, I see us walk between the railway slopes into an evening of long grass and midges, blue smoke straight up, old beds and ploughs in hedges, an auction notice on an outhouse wall. You with a harvest bow in your lapel, me with the fishing rod, already homesick for the big lift of these evenings, as your stick, whacking the tips off weeds and bushes, beats out of time and beats but flushes nothing, that original townland still tongue-tied in the straw tied by your hand. So that's, yeah, it's become one of my favorite poems. And just to note as well that so back to the folklore, that there is elements that say that the folklore that image of the love knot of straw was also relates to an ancient figure called Ethna. And Ethna was in some mythology considered to be the daughter of Crumdove. So the two images on the screen directly relate. So that sort of small image of the straw was kind of the daughter in some sort of strange symbolic mythological way. Okay, I'm handing it back to you, Angie.
Well, what I have is just basically the two, two lines from this poem by Seamus Heaney, but also just to kind of connect Theodorgan and Seamus Heaney again with, without reading the poems, but just to refer back again to the title I took from Harvest by Theodorgan was Slack Entanglement. And as I say, that just kind of was just perfect title for my painting on seaweed. And then I just think this is a really nice image to leave people with as well. And it's just one of two lines out of this poem by Seamus Heaney from Fieldwork, and it's flats and dunes of a northern shore, its dulse and its seabirds. And it's just such two visual, such a visual image, like with just those two lines, and that's kind of that's what we respond to, Sonia, so hopefully people will more work on the West Cork Creates website, so which is absolutely well done again to Alison and Anna and everybody involved in West Cork Creates. It's always a privilege to be involved with such an amazing exhibition.
No, it's always a very important exhibition in my artistic calendar, and and it's obviously a different one this year, but anyway, it's the work is still there in the same quality.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you both so much. That was really really fascinating conversation. I thought it might be nice to see if anybody who's on the Zoom would like to ask a question themselves. So, and also to invite people to turn on their cameras so we can see you. If you'd like, you don't have to. So I'm unmuting everybody now. I think you just have to accept if you want to be unmuted. Alison, I can see you're unmuted.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi, Alice.
Hi, Sonia. I've been wanting to ask you what size is your sculpture? Because I don't know if it's this big or if it's life size.
It doesn't work very well on the screen. I was about to say it's this big, but that's not telling anyone anything. Gosh, I don't have the measurements to my written down here, and it's.
No,
I'm not going to get.
Is it the size of a child? Is it the size of a?
It's just over a foot high.
Okay, right. Okay.
Maybe a foot and a half high. Yeah,
Right.
I'm trying to visualize. Measurements aren't my strong point.
It's just beautiful. I can't get over the fact that the stone is so hard and so polished, and yet it makes you want to stroke it. It's like it's such a fantastic material. And
well, it does. I mean, that it just polishes up beautifully. That stone. It's just,
So it just feels like silk, even though it's cold stone. It feels like silk. It's very beautiful. I'd love to see it in real life. That's one of the frustrations of this exhibition, is not being able to see things in real life, but
hopefully it'll get an outing sometime. He will leave here sometime.
Yeah, hopefully. Good.
Hi, Margaret. Nice to see you.
Yeah, how are you?
Hi, good, thanks. Did you have a question you'd like to ask, or did you just come to say hi?
I came to say hi, but also I wanted to tell Angie, I really enjoyed you talking about the seaweed. I really loved the way the seaweed and the foam around it. It really framed it so nicely.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean that's one of the things I love to paint. Actually, is that I've been doing an awful lot of paintings which are things immersed in water, and I think it comes back to my love of painting material as well. That just kind of that softness of the liquid element to water. Obviously, it's got, but for me, just painting it, it's just, I love the whole kind of sort of thing of immersing in the water and with seaweed. And at this time of the year, with the release of the iron into the water by the seaweed, it's just perfect time. I had my last swim on Monday, so before the sort of weather took a dip, and so to speak, and the foam just there I just think it just really did add to one strand of seaweed tossed onto the shore, and then just the soft element of the foam just did nice.
For me, what was so special about it was the way it just broke the surface. Mm-hmm. And so where it was under the surface, it looked quite different from where it broke the surface. The way you managed to get light into that picture, I just thought that was really fabulous. You could almost touch it,
Yeah, just the kind of bubbles in the foam when it comes in like that as well. And it's just enough to give that light, actually.
Yeah.
I admit, when the first time I saw it, I actually thought it was a photograph.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I saw it small on the screen, and it wasn't until I zoomed in and I could actually see the kind of the strokes, but it's incredibly realistic. Yeah. Okay, well, if no one else has any questions, then I guess we'll leave.
I have one question.
Oh,
there,
hello.
if you don't mind.
Of course,
Hi,
absolutely.
hi, Angie. John Tynan here. You can't see me.
Hi, John.
Hi, John.
Very good. I must say I loved your paintings from the past where you did the slipways, and the way you did manage to capture the fluidity of the water. Just looks so lifelike. I was just wondering this time, I haven't seen your seaweed pictures, but I'm just wondering if you managed to capture the texture of the seaweed. Have you? Is that important for you?
It is, yeah. I mean, because when the seaweed comes in, like when it's on, either floating in water or whether when it's tossed onto the shore, just in out of the water, basically, it picks up. It's got a lovely luster to it because of the shine which is created on the kind of slippery nature of the seaweed. So you get this lovely light and shade effect, with the shine, and so it does create I feel it does, that it creates the nature of the seaweed, so hopefully I did sort of manage to convey that to people looking at it, so
do you have other seaweed works in your studio?
I have bigger ones. Yeah, I did a series of steps and slipways like that, where just waiting to go to some of the islands in West Cork. When I was doing the workshops in Cape Clear now, for instance, as I was mentioning earlier, And so I did a whole series of they were kind of meditative kind of paintings, really, you know, just that, you know, just where you're stepping down steps on a journey, you know, it's a transitional thing. You're either kind of stepping into the water or you're stepping onto a boat. And quite often, like, there's ropes or seaweed or something entangled near the steps. And so yeah, so I did a few like that, and then the smaller ones sort of came from that, actually, you know.
Right.
Or smaller paintings kind of came from the bigger ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, you know, it's I'm always as I say, picking up seaweed, taking it home for baths or whatever. So.
Or chewing gives you a bad breath, yeah?
Well, if I run out of toothpaste, I'll definitely be going looking for it. Luckily, I can still manage to get toothpaste.
Hopefully we'll be able to get toothpaste for the foreseeable future.
Thank you, Angie. Well done, everyone. Interesting conversation this evening.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Jo.
much for your question, and thanks everybody for joining us. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening, and thanks again. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.